Today's workshop focuses on From There to Here and Everywhere, Efficient Shipping Logistics. We know that efficient shipping logistics is the backbone of successful businesses such as those in the tourism, retail, and distribution sectors. With improved shipping logistics comes tremendous overall value, such as increased customer satisfaction and retention, plus improved fulfillment and delivery times. This workshop series could not have been hosted without the kind contribution and support of our sponsors, the Nation Publishing Company Limited, Fund Access, the Business and Employment Center, Deloitte Barbados, RDL Eagle Trade Incorporated, and Guardian General Insurance Limited. We extend sincere appreciation to these organizations for their support and partnership as we seek to assist members of the business community to navigate these challenging times. Now, just a little housekeeping before we officially start today's session. For those joining us on Zoom, if you have any questions during the session, please type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel, or use the raise hand feature to alert the team that you wish to unmute your mic and ask a question directly. We will have a question and answer session following the presentation. However, please note that today's session is more of an open discussion, and we encourage you to openly engage in discussion with today's workshop facilitator, who is keen on conversing with each of you. For those joining via Facebook, please feel free to share your questions with us via the comments section. To officially start the event, let me introduce Mr. Anthony Branker, President of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry, who will be giving the welcome remarks at today's session. Over to you, Anthony.
Thank you so much, James. And let me say welcome to one and all to this final workshop in our Survive and Thrive series. One of the Chamber's strategic mandates is to support the creation of a stronger, more resilient private sector that enables thriving enterprises while contributing to a better society for the benefit of all. Unknown to most, 75% of the Chamber's membership can be categorized as small to medium, and so this Survive and Thrive series was conceptualized to help those businesses in particular to optimize their operation while building resilient, competitive businesses. The government of Barbados recently issued a mandate to the private sector to expand trade and investment opportunities for Barbados into non-traditional markets, with the aim of creating a sustainable, prosperous, and resilient Barbados in the future. The BCCI fully aligns itself with this mandate, and therefore, as we cast our eyes wider afield, there's a greater need for efficient logistics management. Additionally, as the speed of manufacturing accelerates post-COVID shutdowns, significant supply chain challenges and ocean transportation continues to be under pressure. The future of your businesses depend on your ability to effectively strategize today. Just a few years ago, logistics was perceived as a sector with little added value, just one more cost within the supply chain, which had a direct impact on the financial side of the business. Today, however, this perception has changed, and the importance it has achieved is paramount. To this end, the Chamber thought it necessary to include in our Survive and Thrive series a workshop entitled From There to Here and Everywhere to highlight the need for effective logistics management. In order to build strong, resilient businesses, logistics efficiency cannot be discredited, as this management system is considered a differential and strategic factor in any organization, and one that provides an undeniable competitive advantage for companies. Logistical efficiency pertains to the process of how effectively a business conducts its operations. This relates to all areas of the operation that include transportation, warehousing, and overall distribution in general. Any movement of physical objects and vital information is considered logistical. And in our current environment, obtaining a fluid logistical process is rather challenging, considering the number of obstacles that are present to overcome. Whether it is shipping delays, breakdowns, tariffs, or government regulations, all of these affect the logistical process of companies and can cause issues in customer service and hence profitability. Ladies and gentlemen, to be competitive in our global village, we must optimize our supply chain and be committed to the continuous improvement of our logistical process. This would allow us to balance financial growth and sustainability with the goal of achieving the highest level of customer satisfaction. So, as I conclude, let's embrace the logistical process as an integral component of our business so we would be more than able to efficiently move from there to here and everywhere. I thank you.
Anthony, thank you for those welcome remarks. You have certainly set the tone for today's session. I especially like the part where you underscored the importance of effective logistics management to build business resiliency, competitive advantage, and profitability. All areas I'm sure we're most interested in. This event has been made possible by our valued sponsors, and we will now take a quick break for a video from our gold sponsor, the Nation Publishing Company Limited.
Over the years, our forefathers have fought to build the foundation of our nation, a reputation crafted by credible, accurate, and reliable news and information. From St. Mary's Road to Fontebelle to the world at large, what started as a weekly publication has evolved into a daily staple. On the back of credible news, our arm has reached exponential heights, locally and internationally, with a daily local print readership exceeding 107,000, complemented by a digital readership of 65,000 daily. The nation holds Barbados' most extensive distribution network, the island's #1 visited website, and the largest combined social media following, a local industry benchmark that others only aspire to achieve. The nation is cut from a different cloth, yet sewn into the very fabric of Barbados, tailored to fit the needs of Barbadians everywhere. We have grown together, laughed together, celebrated together, and we've even mourned together. But through it all, it has been our duty to keep you informed. Because when you hear news, we remain your focus, and when we hear anything, you remain ours. Because our primary focus has always been and will always be the people of Barbados. Why? Because winners focus on winning, and losers focus on winners.
It is now my pleasure to introduce the facilitator for today's session, an expert in supply chain logistics, Mr. Collis Williams. Collis is currently the Logistics and Supply Chain Consultant at RDL Eagle Trade Incorporated. In Collis's words, what started 37 years ago as a young 14-year-old helping his father to handwrite duty-paid customs entries for a shoe shop in Swan Street has evolved into a full-fledged love affair with the power and value of the science of logistics and supply chains. This unique love affair continues to grow yearly as he continues to develop his understanding of this very dynamic industry. He loves to travel the world and ingest the cultures he meets, and with his partner in crime, he has been fortunate to have been able to do that extensively, from here, there to here, and everywhere. It remains the fuel for the creative and innovative solutions that he believes are critical to any progress in this commercial world we call home. It's these travels which he has been able to intertwine with a unique upbringing that continues to refresh the minds of all who have the privilege of meeting him. He is a firm believer that we all have all been given everything that we need to succeed, and the only thing that precludes us from achieving is not education or knowledge, it's doing. He believes that all doers are winners. Welcome, Collis. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jimmy. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I want to welcome everybody to this very, for me, an important um, time in our history, because the reality is what's come to the fore is that there are no options left. And I like the final words of that nation ad that we just had, where they spoke about winners focus on winners and losers focus on winners. So the reality is, for our workshop today, and I'm hoping and I'm sure that for those who joined on the other workshops, the only emphasis that matters is winning. So I want to take a little time up front to share a little bit about my perspective regarding logistics and supply chain. And let me start by saying, as Jimmy has said, I really want this to be interactive, because I find that winning comes from that intercourse with ideas amongst ourselves. And oftentimes there is a lot laying latent that can be brought to the surface, and in it are the solutions that will defend our current positions and or encourage a sustainability for generations to come. So what's here, there, and everywhere? What's here, there, and everywhere? Marketplaces. From here, from there, to here, and everywhere. And oftentimes we get consumed with getting things from there to here, and we are led to think that the segregation of the product from the perception is okay. And what I mean by that is you're tending you in these small economies, you get left thinking that you just got to have some product, you just got to get access to the product, and using a hawker's mentality, display and hope that it gets sold. And I am asking today for us all here to relieve our minds of, just for this hour and a half or so, from perceptions that have been built up over the years, because I really want to have a conversation with you all. Because let me start by saying, and Mr. Branca, I hope you excuse me for this, but as much as the discussion today is on shipping, the problem we have in the Caribbean is not shipping. And I'm gonna open myself to this discussion because I feel that we have been handed a narrative that we may someday have to accept, that it has done a lot of damage because it has been protracted in an imbalanced way. You say, Collis, what do you mean? Well, let me just say this. I just came from another one of my travels. I was just in Holland. And I would have to tell you that what I saw there and what they have spent a lot of time doing there is scripting and leaving etched in the minds of their people the fruit of their conquer. What I witnessed, my friends, is an unapologetic witness of the conquer. And this is a very touchy subject. I know everybody will say so. But the reality is, and I want to draw our minds to today, because if I could set the framework of everybody's mind here today, I want to set it in a way that they understand that we have to conquer markets. There's no excuse for what obtained years ago, where in the effort to physically conquer, all kinds of labor was used and all kinds of atrocious things went on. However, we cannot provide for the generational wealth that is necessary without the mindset that is critical to getting that access to that generational wealth. And what is that? That is by what we now have as an ethical way to conquer. And that ethical way to conquer is the assessment of markets and data, creativity that we have been attracted to by our own culture and our own lifestyles, and being able to put it out there and command a price for it. And what I want to share here is, especially at this time, where we are talking about freedom. We just got free from the mother country. We just got free. And I'm hoping you excuse me for going down this road, because I believe it sets a tone for what we want to discuss later. Because it's one thing to be free, but freedom carries a substantial load. And I keep asking, it's good to be free, but freedom, then what? All I can say, and I want to pause here to say that it is freedom, and then the conquer. We cannot continue, and let me say this. We cannot continue, my friends, with the incestuous relationship between ourselves and our economy. Generational wealth, and I'm hoping you don't think I'm off topic here, but I believe firmly that this platform must be set. If we are to sustain our people in this country, it has to be done on the principle of the conquest. Commercially, it is called exports. Okay? That is the term being used commercially. But what I think is a challenge to all of us is the term exports is almost like a cliche now. And I don't think that we are suitably informed about the level and the mentality that is required to conquer marketplaces. Because what's required, especially now, when you consider what COVID has done, how the world market has been turned upside down, what has happened in the logistics and supply chain industry, the only antidote will remain the mind of the man who's prepared to conquer. And that, my friends, is what we want to discuss today. Because the conquer, and I will start to build on the reason why you have to be in a conquering mindset. And unfortunately, this is not being suitably discussed coming out of a lot of the educational institutions. And unfortunately, I understand why, because many in these institutions have not themselves been exposed to the level of risk in the conquer. But there's some here in business, and there's some who want to get into business, and there are the others who we need to get into business because the incestuous relationship we have with the Barbados economy cannot continue. The pie will remain the same size, but everybody eating from that pie will continue to increase. And I want to challenge ourselves today to look at this entire thing a little differently. Are there any questions so far? I suppose that means no. So let's move on then quietly to the conquest. So I introduced the fact that exports need to be foremost in our minds. And I would say this here publicly. Export Barbados, which is now under the leadership of Mark Hill, I can say unequivocally that there's a leadership there and a willingness among some there that understand that the conquer is the only thing that will sustain Barbados. And I want to therefore talk about that conquer, because conquer is war. What do you mean, Collis? Well, however you want to interpret it, or however you want to slice it. You're going into a marketplace, there's all kinds of forces around, and you've got to be able to supply the soldiers on the front line. Who are the soldiers? And that for me is really, really important. One of the things I learned very early in my game in logistics and supply chain is that in truth and in fact, I was the support system to persons going out there and venturing to conquer commercial marketplaces. So I understood why it became extremely important to be efficient, timely, and feed them on the front lines. We learned this term now coming out of COVID, to feed them the information, the product on one hand, but the information. There's a lot of information embedded in the supply chain. And it is important for those on the front line to have access to this information. So I want to say, on the one hand, and you may have seen a slide there that says something kind of diabolical to what I'm saying. And the reason why I put that up, that the issue is not exports, simply because I keep, and I realized years ago that we kind of overuse a word until it has no more potency. And exports is one of them words. So I am inviting those here today to, instead of using the word exports, to think of this thing as the conquer. And with that, I need you to even look deeper into the word exports, because the word is losing its potency. Because again, because of inculcation, we have kind of thought of exports as something that needs to be manufactured here and this and that. My friends, exports don't need to be manufactured here. And exports is a whole lot more than an item. It is services, it is designs, it is, and I want to introduce people here to global value chains, because we continue to think that it is about manufacturing something. No, it's about extracting value from the world market wherever it is. And I will explain this very shortly. Putting it together and putting it back on the marketplace in a most attractive way. Think for a second. Think for a second about the iPhone. The iPhone, you may say, is manufactured in China. Well, I am saying to you, it is not. It is shipped from China. But what it is the collaboration of global value chains culminating in China, being shipped from there, but being marketed from somewhere else. So, and I'm saying to you here in our hearing, what's so difficult about that? Nothing. The Mercedes-Benz car you drive, the Ford vehicle that you may have bought from Japan or from the US, has a semiconductor diode from TT Electronics in Newton, Christchurch. So they extracted some value in an item from Barbados, and the collaboration and the conglomeration of these items becomes this thing called a Mercedes-Benz. The tires come from Brazil, this comes from somewhere else. But if there's anything that I think we Bajans have, and those necessarily in the logistics and supply chain industry, is the ability to put together designs, ideas, concepts, and attractively put them on the market. I say this unapologetically because one of the things about Bajans, they love a lot of drafts and they love a lot of dominoes. I believe that we are the greatest logisticians on that account. Now, what I want to go toward here now is to understand what global value chains are. Because traditionally, our understanding of logistics and supply chain has just simply been air freight this, ocean freight that, a courier, customs clearance, and delivery. Those are, my friends, just very small parts of the global value chain that must be embraced if we are to really become what we need to become to conquer markets the world over in view of ensuring our sustainability and our future. I will say this again. I just came from Holland, and I have an unapologetic witness to the value that remains because of the conquest. And I'm asking my people, my friends who are interested here, can we find a way to assemble some logistics and supply chain soldiers to take those who are prepared to risk their businesses to the front line? Understand this. Wars are won and lost right here, supply chains. And I remember reading some time ago how Russia, they had, I mean, some would have read the history, they had all these U-boats conquering the Allies because nobody could find them. Then there was an important piece of technology that came called the radar, and the Allies were able to find these U-boats and bomb them. Eventually, the Russian army retreated because they weren't able to understand why they were being seen. Needless to say, the next strategic move by the Russian army was this: supply chains, because a hungry army can't fight. And it's from that perspective that I want to share how important the supply chains are if we are going to take ourselves out of the coma that the world economy, and more so our small economies, have been thrust into. You have to start seeing the value of supply chains and why the mentality of the conqueror is the only thing that is going to take you out of the coma. So where are we? We're tooled with a mentality. We are tooled with an understanding of the power of global value chains and supply chains, because what global value chains are is an intricate mix of supply chains. And that's what's really important to understand, because this is where we're going next, supply chains. But I think there's a question somewhere I would love to answer. Sherry Ann Mears? Sherry Ann, can you unmute your mic, please?
Yes, please. I didn't, probably that's a mistake because I didn't plan to answer the question. I was just listening.
Okay, all right, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you clearly.
No problem.
Okay, so let's continue. So we hear the global value chains because we need, I think we've just gone over briefly what logistics and supply chains include and how we need to really reorient ourselves in relation to exports in a way that allows us to see ourselves as creators of more than a couple manufactured items here from Barbados. But what I want to share more importantly is what makes up these global value chains. And on the one hand, their products, their items, their screws, they're all these things that must come together. As I said, this intricate mix of supply chains that will come together and form a product from one point of view. But very important to all of this is the need to understand that these global value chains and supply chains are held together by alliances. There's a question from Christopher Richards. If you want to ask your question now, Christopher, unmute your mic.
Hey, so a question that I have is that, don't you think that, I guess, what would have limited us in the past were preferential trade agreements? Like the only thing we could have exported a couple of years back was sugar, to our previous colonial masters. But what about the new policies on the international scale, like the new continuing agreement that they're looking at for this year and next year, with getting into the EU markets? Don't those international policies, those bigger states would influence what we are capable of exporting and reach as well? Like I do follow the initiative of becoming a republic and forming our own relationships and stuff, but it is still very difficult to enter the EU market because of how harsh the requirements are. But more importantly, about how they're going to form these new agreements, more specifically the post-continuing agreement. That's the question I have for you.
So I like your question. I like the question, and I am. Let me just say this. Oftentimes, I am writing and asking for concessions for foreign capital to enter the island, and there is always this local approval for foreign capital to come in. And I hear you, and we continue to accept that these preferential treatments will work against us. Now, here is what I want to say to you and to those here. We are uniquely placed because something happened in the 50s and the 60s that we do not capitalize on suitably. Christopher, do you have family in the EU?
No, I do not.
Do you have family anywhere else? And here's where I'm going with this. Again, I think we view the diaspora incorrectly. We continue to think that we need to get the diasporic involvement for them to come home. But there are, so to speak, in the war, the commercial war, there are our spies. So they form these agreements. And these agreements seem to shut us out. The reality is, you can't shut out a man who is already in your territory. So if we can look at this entire diaspora through a different lens, you will extract some value from alliancing with family or friends in those commercial setups. So you don't have to see yourself as an exporter from Barbados. And this is exactly where I'm going with this entire discussion and this workshop today. We've got to free our minds from this notion that we need to do something from Barbados. And one of the things I'm going to approach the government on very early next year is for this very reason. If you look at the Chinese strategy, you will see them putting all kinds of players out in the international market. They become, so to speak, commercial spies. They see a gap in the market, and they bring in their product, their services, their everything. Why aren't we seeing ourselves in the same construct where I can alliance with somebody in America that gives me access to a whole financial enablement that the local banks refuse to give us? And I don't blame them. I pity the local banks, because what they don't understand is that I have family, friends in the diaspora that I trust, that I can bypass this local malaise of a banking system and operate at a level that puts me very close to what we have come to accept of the things and people that we or companies that we work with. So I want to disturb our minds about this notion that you're to sit here and accept what they do. I want to disturb our minds from this notion that some country somewhere can put you in a box. I want us to embrace the conqueror's mindset. And one of the things that I did and we learned and when we did project management is what we call critical path analysis. Man, what is the path to take to get to what I need to get to so that my products or the person or the companies I'm supporting with my logistics can be on this marketplace the way they ought to be. Our soldiers have got to be fed. How are you going to do that? It's going to be done through alliances. Alliances, my friends. Nobody, no bank, no shipping company, no nothing can trap you. Why? Because you understand just peacefully that I will take a critical path to get what I need to get, where I need to get it, in the condition, cost, and in the way I want it to be delivered. The conqueror's mindset stops at nothing. And our way out of what we have going on today is the conqueror's mindset. Freedom to conquer, not freedom. Freedom to conquer. Any questions before I move on? So let's talk a little bit about what's required. Because if anything coming out of this meeting, I would love teams of people approaching the Barbados Chamber of Commerce to saying, listen, man, I feel that we need to be a part of the conquer, or I need to be a part of the conquer. What you need to do next is to establish what are the alliances you have that can give you the value to put you on the market, the price, the condition, and the way that you need to be there. So let's talk then about going to market, because we got to discuss the mode of attack. And I know this is very circuitous, but at the end of the day, I'm coming around to the shipping and logistics. And brick and mortar, as you know, is a very expensive way to really go at it. So you got a building, you've got staff, you've got this, you've got that. And I don't really want to spend very much time at all or any on brick and mortar as a mode of attack to get into a market, because it's often fraught with a lot more risk than you would ordinarily be able to handle coming out of the challenges and the coma, the economic coma that the Barbados economy or some of our economies is in. So but what we need to do, like the beaver, is just take a small piece, because a small piece of a many adds up to a big piece. But what's that? And I'm saying our mode of attack can simply be e-commerce. And I know, again, this is an overused, abused term that everybody says, oh man, put it on the net and hope it sells. But it is more than that. And to effectively have an e-commerce model, you've got to do an audit of your alliances. Because I am telling you categorically, and if I can get enough soldiers together, we will prove it. We do not have the logistics and supply chain enablement in Barbados, and I dare say in these small Caribbean islands, to really efficiently do anything from here. The economy of scale just ain't there. That's one. Number two, and I will bring this term up a little down the road, But the operational cadence in these small islands is abysmal. Let's call a spade, because the reality is you will find and accept and have to accept that you will not be able, barring certain size shipments, to cost effectively get your product on the world market. Because remember, we are talking about conquerors looking to take off pieces of the world market in wherever you've got alliances. And what's your operational cadence? And let me just say that very, very simply. I mean, it's you can go into a lot of detail with it, but I'm going to just strip it down for shipping and logistics point of view. My friends, you can get a package from England on a courier in 2 days or a day. Out of Miami or the States, it takes a day, 24 hours. It oftentimes takes 2 to 3 times as long to get from Christchurch to St. Michael's. I have a problem with that. And it is a symptom of a lack of understanding of the cost it is to a small business to have to accommodate that operational cadence. Big businesses can accept some of those costs. And I'm doing a simple study for myself. And this is one of the reasons why I've insisted to my staff. You have to deliver it in 24 hours. Because that customer is running a lost sales account for the shirts that he couldn't sell. That trucker went in the port for the entire day. He has a cost to run a truck. He has insurance. He has gas. He has man hours. Our operational concept and our operational cadence is abysmal. And it is costing us in the private sector more than the duties and taxes we have to pay. You can get yourself caught going into the port for a package that you've paid $600 in duty on and cost you in lost sales, in operational costs, more than that $600. And therefore, my soldiers in the Concord, we have to appeal to the government to embrace a different way of thinking, because you're extracting $600 while costing me $800. It don't make sense. Because the reality is, as more and more companies turn away from doing business here, you're going to end up having to charge less and less duty because less and less people are coming here. The concept of the duty and penal consequences of doing business is of all moment for our appeal to the government. We need to fix the operational cadence. And I will say this, and I challenge anybody to prove me wrong. The issue is not as much shipping as it is our operational cadences in doing business in these small island states. But I digress. Let's go back to logistics and supply chain, because we are talking about the global value chains and the need to have alliances. And I am appealing to you to do an audit of the alliances you have. I have an uncle in New York. I have a supply chain company up there who's prepared to move my product cost effectively from here to there, and from there to here. I will go even further and say this. One of the things you're going to find out when you do your audits of how you're going to put your services together, your e-commerce service together, is that negotiating from a small island with no economy of scale is the worst thing you can do. in trying to be efficient. I use it in my business all the time. If I'm buying product from Europe, I let the foreign freight forwarders negotiate my price. If I go to Geese here or I go to one of the other shipping lines, in this small market, we are a bother to them. So they will charge us what they like. But at the same time, they have to hedge against disappointing that big forwarder or that big small package company. So they will give them rates that you will never get by approaching even FedEx or DHL here. Alliances. Understand and make an audit of your alliances. Another alliance you have to have is financial. Because again, remember, we're talking about operational cadence. We're talking about, well, the loose term is doing business, the doing business factor. It is cheaper for you to open a small business in Miami. You may be start an account in 30 minutes, a business in 30, get access to logistics and supply chains from Miami because of your alliance with whomever is there. Put your website up in an hour, get your ability to get your capital and your sales into your account in an hour, than the 3 weeks it's going to take you to set up an account here with one of the local banks. I'm unapologetic about it. We have, at some point, to get into the conqueror's mindset and walk past those doors. You're not going to be able to survive and thrive if you continue to walk yourself through the status quo and the doors that are presenting themselves there. Global value chains. We talked about access to freight forwarding or logistics services using businesses with a bigger economy of scale. We talked about access to financial enablement by migrating your willingness to work with a family member. And this is why I'm saying to you, the diaspora has more value there to give you access to conquering than bringing them back here. You and I have got to go on the world market and conquer for us to repatriate money to Barbados. But you're not going to make a lot of money. You're not going to be able to create the intergenerational wealth by continuing to dig out of this well. So my friends and those here, when you understand the need to get access to the international market, when you understand the value of putting together some global value chains so that you can make your conquests on these international markets, it doesn't have to be as big as Rihanna, but she is certainly a light that we need to follow. She took an art and a technique and an ability from here, and she went on the international market, and she was able now to attract intergenerational wealth. My friends, the model is clear. You're not going to be able to do it here. But you have, as you frame out your small business, to understand, and I'm talking specifically about e-commerce, what's required in order to be sitting on the market in a way that your soldiers on the front line can be fed. And I'm going to just say here, and this is a mantra that I live by and I keep in my office all the time. It's up on one of the walls. It's not the big that eat the small. It's the fast that eat the slow. So and I'm hoping you new converted soldiers can continue to appeal to the government that we cannot continue to function from here. So we've got to use the critical paths that are handed to us through alliances to get access to being able to conquer on the world markets. So I know in many ways, a lot of what I've said may even be off point as far as you're concerned. But I'm saying to you before we go too far, that the logistics and supply chains you may need to examine are not the ones coming here. The operational cadence will kill you. But you cannot not give up. You cannot give up, even though you have to work here. So there are businesses here that I work for that I will do everything I can to make sure that their operational cadence makes sense. And the cost to them makes sense. But I am attracting you to looking outward, because the incestuous relationship we have with our economy will not sustain you from generation to generation. So I want to get close to finishing now, because I want to share with you why, as you embark on e-commerce, you're going to need to understand a few things. And one of those things is when we've talked about employing the alliances that you need, whether it's through finance and the diaspora and your family. We talked about alliancing with bigger freight forwarders or bigger companies who can negotiate because of their economy of scale a lot better for you, and getting access to priority using that methodology. But I want to say something about e-commerce because, you know, in many ways, one of the things that I see hamper us in the way we do business, as in small islands, and I have a little private resentment of it, and it's called the hawker. Not that I resent what people do to make money, but I think that in a part of the enlightenment for our people needed and needs to include the need to sell, conquer, and the need to enhance the customer relationship. And in e-commerce, one of the peculiarities about e-commerce is that you got very few touch points with the customer. One of those touch points is your website. So again, global value chains, alliances, you need an exceptional graphic artist, you need a website designer that's exceptional. And I dare say, and unapologetically so. You can, again, extract some value, meaning you can get somebody with a lot more experience for a lot less price from the international market. You were to say to me, Carlos, oh, okay, why don't we use local? Well, I think that, you know, we have kind of protected this local thing. And it has its challenges because oftentimes the locals have not really been exposed to the level and the quality and the software and the hardware that's out there. And if you're going to go to battle on the international market, you really need access to a high level of capability. And you're going to need to really face the fact that at this stage of the business, I need as much as I can get for as little as I can get, because you're balancing and measuring, you're balancing risk. At the same time, I do believe that the local talent need to put themselves on the international market. The incestuous relationship that we continue to have with our local economy continues to do more damage than good. So I'm not giving them access to work, but I'm saying to them, don't sit there and hope that I am going to give you a job because you are a Bajan. Because at the end of the day, the bank does not even ask me the nationality of the bills I have to pay. They do not even ask me whether a Bajan is who you owe, and therefore I will forgive you 50%. They don't care. So again, part of the global value chain in e-commerce is that you've got to extract the highest value for the best price. By going back to touch points, because it's so important that you create a perception on your website that attracts people to wanting to do business with you. But understand this, when they click pay, the clock starts running, and a second in e-commerce is shorter than a normal life second. Once a man has put his money on the table, the clock starts to run. And understand this. The second touch point with your client is really when those goods arrive at his door. So here is where you have to understand that you've got to be in bed or an alliance with a company that continues the perception that you created when you first had access to this customer. And you can therefore see the value of having exceptional logistics in order to continue that trend. Because I can tell you this, and to translate it to Barbados, you go to one of these motor vehicle companies, your car just had damage, you're waiting for a part to come in. You hear that the part is coming, you hear that the part is here, and then you hear that we are still waiting. And the reality is, the operational cadence is so bad that the car you're renting at $150 a day, you've got to rent for an extra week. So that part that you thought you paid $500 for actually costs you $500 plus 150 by 7. I am bright, so I can't get multiplied. But I know it's enough money. So my point is, you've got to see the relationship between getting service through companies who cannot give you access to the economy of scale that you need, one hand, and don't have the perceived value to the shipping company that you want to use. And therefore, you've got to make sure your alliances give you access to these kind of elements so that you can de-risk your capital. You can be on the market in a way that matches what is required for you to conquer on the international market, because we cannot continue the incestuous relationship with the Barbados economy. So I'm sorry that it wasn't more very supply chain oriented, but I feel, I'm hoping that I've conveyed enough that invites you to open your mind to looking at logistics and supply chains as a way to take you to markets, but rather than fighting and struggling in relation to what obtains here. Find your alliances somewhere else. Find your critical path analysis through other routes, because you're not going to be able to do business at a high level with some of what we're seeing obtained here in the Caribbean. And I can tell you why. The markets are really, really small. So negotiate from a different position, because negotiating from here is hard and is wrong, and more than the supply chain, more than the logistics or the shipping or operational cadence, needs intensive care. I want to open myself to any questions and thoughts from the floor. Well, it seems that I have been so clear. Sorry, someone was saying?
Yeah. Carlos, it's Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much for that. It's a really engaging presentation. I wanted to ask a question. Since we've seen, and this is to do with global movement of products and so on, I mean, services can be exported, or you said not exported, but in other words, they can be moved around the world electronically in many cases, depending on what it is. Certainly, we've all seen and heard and seen on the news about the issues with shipping. I've also, though, seen commentary that air freight is taking off, no pun intended. What are you seeing from where you sit?
Well, so you got to bear in mind, Jimmy, that the shipping industry has never made as much money as it's currently making. And all of my alliance with the industry tells me that they don't intend this to change for another 2 years. The argument is that for the first time we are making money. Because of that, obviously, again, if you look at operational cadence, a lot of companies and businesses are realizing that the cost of waiting for 40 days for a shipment far outweighs the 20% more that I would pay to air freight it and get it here in 2 or 3 days. So you're watching a market, and everybody's flexing those to get as much as they can get out of it. What shipping has done is opened up air freight in a very unique way. And the answer to that, Jimmy, is that, again, you got to look at the global value chains. And one of the things we do in this industry sometimes is you may have to look at how you make something. So let's say you bring air conditions from somewhere. You may, because the cost to bring it from China is astronomical now, and what traditionally, I don't know where you bring them from, but what would have been before $3,000 is now $18,000. So you're talking a $30,000. So can you bring parts of that air condition directly from the market nearby and assemble it here? What I am seeing is the opening of an innovative way to approach. And I think that people like yourselves that have to bring in big quantities of product may be well served to look at how we can bring these in and derive more value from putting them together and assembling them.
Okay. Yeah,
So
that makes
a lot
sense.
of
Yeah.
industries are opening up now simply because freight is what it is. And the innovators are saying, well, okay, I'm going to bring the semiconductor diodes in a small package straight from Chile. I'm going to bring so and so straight from this. So when you're going out to your finished product guy, you're saying to him, listen, don't carry it right down the supply, don't carry it right through the factory line. I want it pulled off here because I can do the rest from a near shore application. So it's all of these innovations that go into play now that we've got to look at. And then, Jimmy, more than anything else, when prices go like this, what it really does open is it opens room for people to come in lower down. So it's not always bad because it creates room for the innovator or the creative mind.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, bringing something that's very voluminous in at a high rate per cubic foot makes less sense. I
Don't make
mean,
sense. Yeah.
earlier this year, I came across a mattress that you could buy, and this is a full steel spring mattress that comes in a box 6 feet long and about a foot square because it's vacuum packed.
Yes.
So you imagine how
So
many of
all
them
of
you can
those,
fit in a container.
yeah. So this
You
is where
know?
the innovators are scoring. So
Yeah.
the truth is, it really so we again, and this is one of the challenges I've often had. So everybody gets trained on the price that on the fact that shipping is no all of this, and it's costing a lot of money and it's uncertain. But innovators are looking around and saying, I can need to vacuum pack that. So if that used to be 15 cubic feet of mattress, that is now down to one. So if my price of shipping has been multiplied by 5, and I can divide the cubic footage of that particular item by 5, then I really am shipping at the same price almost.
Yes, absolutely. Another question. This is pertaining to our local market. So, in terms of improving the local cadence, is there one particular area or touch point that would be could be tackled? I suppose I hesitate to use the term low hanging fruit, but something that you could go at quickly that would have a great multiplier effect to improve the local service.
Listen, the low hanging fruit that I would have to recommend is so heavy you can't lift it.
Yeah.
And it really boils back down to it really is it's about the mentality. And so and I pause when I say this because we've been brought up in an economy where everything is penalty and power. So when that becomes the ultimate projection, then the entire system slows down because we are looking for penalty and power. Whereas we need to have these young people, young minds, small businesses flying. You can audit them after the fact. You can do whatever you have to do. But the reality is the operational cadence is doing more damage than duties and taxes. But
Yes,
it
indeed.
really is a campaign, a campaign, if you call it, because you don't want to single out one person, because you and I and everybody here knows that we have a national problem. So it has to be fixed on a national level, where the minds of the people. This is what the talk I did on this presentation. Our minds have got to change. So I don't like to even talk so much about shipping and the logistics and the this and that, because there's enough proof to show you that FedEx will get here in a day. There's enough proof to show you that the vessel from Miami will get here in 6 days. What happens after is sad. It's actually sad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, that has been our experience. It's been very variable, from really good at times to you have customers screaming at you because they're just like, "Where's my stuff?" And I'm like, "Well, we're in the machine, so we have to wait till it turns."
Yeah, but if we can
And
get
that's
a
unfortunate.
national, but we got to get a national term.
Yeah.
Because we talk a lot. You see, we talk a lot about freedom, but we don't understand that the liberty must also come right through in giving people the ability to do business really quickly, really fast. Because Amazon has set a standard that's difficult to follow. But we must.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and you can see them taking business from other places as well. I'm absolutely astounded every day at what you can buy off of Amazon. I mean, it's incredible. And to other, and what you said about the having an excellent website could not be more true. I mean, sometimes if we go to purchase something off of Amazon and they don't quite have it or not exactly what you want, you have to go to a different website. Oftentimes they're painful. And when you think like, oh my goodness, if this was set up like Amazon, it would be a joy to deal with. So I thought that was a very, very,
when you talk e-commerce.
Yeah, I thought that was a very powerful point that you made. It's one thing to give Uncle Bob or your friend John, who dabbles in things to set up these things, but if their expertise is limited, you could very, very hamstring yourself, which is the last thing that you want, especially as a small business, Yeah. So I thought it was a very, very, very good point.
Yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've done out of questions. Is there anybody up for questions? Anybody would like to ask anything?
And one things I want to say here is that, well, what we traditionally know as BIDC, Export Barbados, is really in a frame of mind now that I would say to anybody, you need to give them a call. But if there are not many questions, Jimmy, I'm happy. I think I would love people to reach out to the chamber where they have questions. I mean, I am no expert, but I do have some experience, and there are many others in the chamber who have experience. But if there's anything that I think we would want to convey from the chamber, is that we've got to get our people in the conqueror's mindset, and as many of them as possible. Then we've got to find the alliances to make them cutting edge.
Thank you very much, Collis. That makes a lot of sense, and that's very sage advice for all of us here on the call and for the chamber and so on. It's a much more broad perspective than the absolute mechanics of what we may deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I really do appreciate your insight. I know it's from many, many years of experience and here and elsewhere. And we really, really appreciate you taking your time out to present this to us and give us your thoughts and insights and so on. And I would encourage all of our guests here today, should you have any other questions that arise, please do not hesitate to contact Collis either via the Chamber of Commerce or at RDL Eagle themselves directly. And I'm sure he'd be happy to discuss with you.
Yeah,
so
it's my passion. We got to take them to the market.
Yeah. So before we go, anybody else here? Collis is here. The man is here. Any other questions before we go? He's here on the spot and ready to go.
Yeah, I think there may be another question. Is there another question?
I see a question here.
Good morning, Collis.
Sorry.
Hi. Hi,
Right. I
Simon.
just posted a question in the question and answer. And it was a very interesting presentation that you made. And I know it's a big concern, huge concern for, for a lot of people who are doing business in Barbados. And I do like your comments regarding, you call it incestuous. I like that. I like that, that comment. So what I want to ask is what's next? How do we move forward? How do we move forward from here? How do we start this engagement? How do we start to get, how do we engage government, private sector to start thinking this way, or we are thinking this way, but how do we now put it into motion? It's all fine and well. We sit down and we talk about these things here. What's our next step? Because it's a very important step for business.
Well, what I'm doing personally is I'm working with the Export Barbados to try to come up with concepts to mobilize people. And what personally I believe, and I'm going to reach out to the government to discuss, is how do we incentivize mobilization? So, and it's not, you're not, I don't think the incentive is about getting cash to start a business. A lot of people go to war and they what they need is to feel the support of those backups. That is the website designer. I need to feel the support of the logistics and supply chain team. And we need to be able to find a creative way to incentivize doers, incentivize mobilization. And that is what, and I think people like yourself need to be a part of, where we really come up with a new way to incentivize the mobilized.
Okay, thanks for that, Collis. I had another question which had to do with when you're talking about incentivizing and mobilizing. Is it then that you're suggesting that the parties or the people that can in fact mobilize and be part of this, are you suggesting that we reach out to Export Barbados and try to have that conversation, try to start that dialogue and actually make it happen? Because my strong point here is, I want to see something happen. We need to see things happen. We talk, but we need to actually actualize it. And I really would like, if there could be some sort of lead that's going to come back after this discussion to say, if you recall, we had a Zoom conversation XYZ on this topic, and here's the follow on. How do you get involved? How can you take the next step to make this happen? And I'm not trying to put that responsibility on you, but is there, how do you suggest we kind of get to that level, that stage, please?
My recommendation would be, and this is something I would recommend, and I would talk to both Jimmy and Anthony Branco, that we engage Export Barbados in a real effort to incentivize those who will mobilize. And of course, Simone, you know this more than most or all in Barbados. A public relations campaign that demonstrate the advance and the advancements that those who took the risk to mobilize and conquer have been making and will continue to make under the stewardship of that union between a body like the Chamber, Export Barbados, and all that it needs, that they bring to the table. But again, it needs political will, but that has to be resident in us. And if we see ourselves as soldiers of creating what we think we need to create, we need to commit. What are the thoughts on the
Thanks,
floor on this?
fellas. Much appreciated.
Yeah. Jimmy, what are you thinking?
A sense, this is something that is, hugely critical, and if we don't deal with it, we're going to definitely be left behind if we're not being done so already as we see the world move forward. And now is an opportune time when shipping and speed of doing business and ease of doing business is very evident in everybody's minds because they're experiencing it. It's not just something that's being talked about on the news or by business service organizations. This is something that everybody is actually seeing themselves when they go to the supermarket or when they try to travel or anything like that. So, and now is an absolute opportune time to talk about these matters. So yes, certainly call us. We definitely welcome your input and any assistance that you can give us, and certainly we will play our part as well.
Yeah. Well, Simon, rest assured, this is, I think the leadership of the BADC now is one of action, and it's what it is. But I think, as Jimmy said, with all that's going on, it's put a lot of stuff on the front burner that we need to really now talk aside and delays aside, because my point on that matter is where we suspect a delay, the critical path analysis demands that you pivot and move. You just don't come through there. You're not coming through that financial institution. You're not bringing the product here. You've got to pivot. You've got to move, but you've got to conquer. I think there's a question from Paul and Kimberly King.
Yes, good morning. It's Paul Evelyn here at Caribbean Label Craft. I just wanted to compliment the BIDC or Export Barbados on the outstanding job that they're doing in encouraging exports. That organization and the chamber is doing quite a bit on this. But one of the issues that we have to address, and what was a lot about this morning, was the issue of the logistics. And we really are going to have to lobby with government and with governments across the region, perhaps through CARICOM, on looking at certainly improving the intra-Caribbean shipping system, the intra-regional shipping. I'm speaking from the perspective of a company that exports 93% of its production, across 30 odd different countries in the region and into Central America. And I can honestly tell you that it is easier for us to go out there, identify prospective clients, work with them, bring in business, get the work done, and our problems start when the shipment is in our loading bay and we have to look at getting it out of Barbados across to destinations within the region. I mean, even as simple as getting shipments sometimes to St. Lucia and Dominica and Antigua, they have to transit Miami to come back down. And we have a serious problem with intra-regional shipping, and it is always going to tie the hands and limit exporters.
So, Mr. Evelyn, I am fully aware of your challenge. And I have been commissioned to look into it. And I'm currently writing a suggested solution. And because what you're seeing is real. I have said for years, and I dare say 4 years, we need to ring fence the Caribbean, and we need with the conqueror's mindset to take responsibility for our own maritime affairs. We continue to depend on other international shipping companies who have no interest in moving 2 containers from Barbados to St. Lucia, no interest in moving 3 containers from Barbados to St. Vincent. And this is why I keep saying that the issue is us. And the time has come, and I am actually going to send that report in very soon because I've done the research on it now. And again, BIDC, led by Mark Hill, and I'm very open about it, is seeking solutions and are prepared to go the distance. I do hope in a very short, I shouldn't say very short, but in a very soon to come, we will have some really hard solutions, actioned solutions on intra-Caribbean trade.
Hi, this is Kimberly. Can you hear me?
Hi, Kimberly.
How are you? I think what Paul was saying, my name is Kimberly King. I'm not really a product provider, but I am a service provider. So I guess my export of my services is a little bit different. However, since I am in this forum, I could air my considerations. And I think what Paul was saying is speaking into what I was thinking. Sometimes you try to reach out into the international market through the US and the UK, and there's such a opportunity to grow within our region, and having a strong regional bloc that can be then, like you say, conquer maybe international markets because we are stronger together, can really push businesses forward instead of trying to get into markets which are completely saturated with what you are trying to provide. And it might be harder to get into that space. Of course, I guess the market itself having a lot more people, then you capturing a small subsection of that might be beneficial. But if you can really jump into regional markets, I think that's where things are. And you speak about the willingness to get together and all of these things. And the situation is that I've been in a number of business forums, and like Simone was saying, there's always a lot of talk, and there's always all these well wishes and wonderful action, and then everybody goes away and you never hear anything about it, and nothing is ever done anyways. And small businesses in that whole this whole framework gets lost. And so I guess although most businesses in Barbados can be categorized as small to medium enterprises, the larger ones that are on that scale really need to step up and try to push forward and like almost pave a way and consider the other smaller enterprises when they're doing their negotiation, because an economy is stronger when there are multiple businesses doing well within the economy. And I find sometimes when I don't know, but I only figure that the medium enterprises, they're only really considering things from their point of view and how to push forward things from their level of scale, and not really helping the smaller businesses. And smaller businesses, although you say, we want to push the conversation past finance, finance is critical. Encouragement through finance is critical. You can't do anything without money. And so even opening up those chains through the medium enterprises, I find can be a little bit better at trying to help those in the smaller markets come up. And I think it will be better for everyone. So I don't know if that was a question or just like comments.
No, I like your comment. But let me say this. there's two things I want to say. I do not share the idea that incentivization is money. And because I I didn't have any, and and especially in today's marketplace, where you've got access to technology, the internet, you have an ability to put your product and also touch almost touch it, but you're able to put your product out there in a way that wasn't so before, and you don't even have to have made one. You see, I've watched construction in the construction industry. I worked in it for years doing logistics, and they would do this thing called selling off plan. And the question is whether that isn't a transferable skill for small businesses, where you put your plan there, see what kind of interest you get before you make your next move, get commitments. So there's innovative ways that you don't have to have. I really would love to disabuse our small business people of that mindset that you need money. And I challenge anybody to sit and let's discuss it together, because that notion, I don't know where it's come from, but conception of a business is not by capital. Capital will accelerate, capital will do some certain things. But my friend, do not ever let yourself be found thinking or convicted that you need money. It's a fallacy.
I
On
can
the
see
other
where you're
hand,
coming from with that, you know. But the situation, sorry, I don't mean to
I
jump in,
don't do it
but I
because
just want to.
you're gonna stop. You're gonna stop yourself from moving forward.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, but what you're saying, what you just said, is very interesting point in terms of those people who know, okay, you don't need money. What you really need is A, B, and C, D, because I went A, B, C, D, and here I am with the money and able to bring my business forward. Who, like you said, who's having that conversation with small businesses? Okay, so to bring your mindset out of needing money, because remember, a poor person trying to get out of being poor using business, money is going to dominate your mind because you have bills to pay, you have children. It's going to be hard for you not to think about the money. However, if you have people who say, okay, well, this is the steps, you go here, then you go here, talk, dialogue, and like you said, use your mind specifically, somebody else's mind. It might not be the type of business you are in, but you can engage your mind with the person's idea to show them how they're going to move their business forward without necessarily having capital. And where do those spaces exist?
Well, Kimberly, you make a very valid point, because and I tell you, one of the challenges I've got in principle of agreeing with you. A lot of business advice in these small islands are coming from people who have never once experienced business. They're sitting down and theoretically presenting a picture that really is not what it is in the real world. That's one. Number two, and let me just dare say, I don't have a lot of time for it, because I know it is just some theoretical presentation that has no bearing on reality. Number two is sometimes, and these are things that I went through, where you come up with an idea and one of your props or your crutches is the fact that I have no money and therefore I'm going to stop. And really, when you really deconstruct the whole thought process at that point, what you were really saying was, boy, before I fail, I can blame the lack of money. I don't want to fail and make myself look stupid. So I can blame, boy, I ain't got no money. And you'll be surprised. And these are real vulnerable life stories where you that becomes a crutch to excuse you because you fear failure. And it's okay to accept that I've been down that road a million times. And these are things you gotta fight your way through. But the other last thing I want to address about what you asked was about these medium-sized businesses. And the reality is, while I understand what you're saying, you've got to hit the ball in front of you. And in many times, in many ways, some of these business, you may claim, okay, they're making $100,000 a week or $200,000 a week, and so they can afford to so and so. But the reality is, the day that the market turns south, while you are losing $2,000 a week, they are losing $400,000 a week. So they themselves are keeping their eyes on their ball. And I think we sometimes, we rather than understanding that they are trying to de-risk a lot more capital, and these are the real life stories that are not coming to the fore. So I'm not saying they shouldn't reach out and help, but just understand that they are de-risking a tremendous amount more capital than we are. That man at the top of the finance in that company is being held accountable for $6 million in revenue, whereas you are being only held accountable for 5,000. And his mind is, how do I get myself or get this company in a position that as the market turns down, I can manage and mitigate against the level of losses that we are encountering. One. Number two, a lot of times we don't realize that these medium-sized businesses have borrowed tremendous amount of cash. And so again, oftentimes the stories are not balanced, and it boils down to just what you were saying, Kimberly. The conversations are just not public. Nobody's really talking about what actually goes on, and the only people talking are the intellects who think they have a grasp of it theoretically. And you will find the businessmen go quiet and let them continue on a road that really is a false concept.
Thank you for your comments. I agree. Business people need to talk to business people.
Yeah.
Not a theory. People that have business experience need to talk to small businesses, and this is how it works in the real world. Thank you.
Yeah, but you see, the problem is those who are on the Facebooks and putting themselves as influencers are just theorists who really have absolutely no experience. The thing is horrible. It's sad. Anyway, I got another question from a Benjamin Niles.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for your insightful presentation. I wanted to ask if you think directly in relation to the shipping matter. If I went to Singapore once and found there that in a population of 5 to 6 million, they were guaranteeing delivery container out of their port within 24 hours. They were taking it on themselves to guarantee that as a delivery time. Could we not help our port to lift their gear to a standard like that? Is a much smaller market. This should be very much so able to meet such a target, you think?
Mr. Niles, I would say this, and I am open for people to question me. But where you've got a society and an economy, and in many instances, places like the port that actually think they're doing you a favor, they don't see themselves as doing a service. They see themselves as doing you a favor. And so that little nuance is what separates high efficiency or high operational cadence from what actually obtains here in Bridgetown Port. And I really like your point, because the truth is the government, in an effort to help improve the quality of the businesses in Barbados, should put a mandate on the different institutions, whether it's plant, quarantine, customs, port, all of them, have these goods delivered in a time span, or otherwise it's our responsibility to get them out. Right. And I would love you to sit in and help and share again how the Singaporean port was able to put that concept together, because the Barbados port and many of our ports really need to look at how they can improve the operational cadence so businesses carry less stress financially.
Yes, I would also want to say to the two persons who asked questions earlier about from a small business perspective, that they need to remember that business is very much like fish in the ocean. Big fish eat small fish every day. It is the responsibility of small fish to survive and thrive, and they learn how to do it. The first principle is working together. They swim together. You don't see big fish swimming together. They swim alone. But small fish swim together, and we have to learn that as small business people. And we have to learn that if we want to learn about business, we have to make contact with people in business. So your comments about the relationships and identifying who we could work with is very important, because we start with a conversation, ask a question, draw near to somebody, ask a question. Business people are glad to share their story, but they don't have time to waste. So they don't spend time broadcasting, but they'll share to who they think are searching out to find a way out. Thank you.
Very valid point. Really good point, Benny. There's a question from Mrs. Loban Clark.
Holly, hi. Well, let me just first, on behalf of the Chamber, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. I would like to, as the Executive Director of the Barbados Chamber, to address a query from Kimberly earlier. She wanted to find out who will be engaging small businesses. And Collis, I really just want to emphasize that the Chamber, as part of its strategic mandate, and in this kind of current challenging environment, recognize that within its membership, we have a large percentage of small to medium-sized businesses, and we needed to implement strategies or initiatives that can help small businesses. So I just want for her information to let her know that it's for this reason that we launched the Survive and Thrive workshop series, Collis, for small businesses. While this is the very last of the series for this year, it is something that we intend to continue. And what we identified earlier with the series of workshops is that we honed in on the key elements of business principles that we know small business need, that they may not necessarily have sometimes resources to be able to pull from. So this is how we help. And this is why, for example, the first series looked at things like enabling innovation and digital transformation for business. And then we also looked at critical elements of business, which is marketing and service excellence as a winning strategy. And we cannot underestimate the value of a small business paying attention to service excellence. I think it's something that we really do need to pay attention to as businesses in general. And there is, of course, the element of financing option for small businesses, which was the workshop before this one, Collis, which we all know as well. And these workshops really kind of brought the resources to our small businesses. We didn't have the kind of participation levels that we wanted to see, but it's something that the Chamber is committed to doing, to ensuring that we as an organization are helping small businesses within the membership to survive and thrive in this environment. So it's something that we will continue into next year. And therefore, I just wanted to address that for Kimberly. I also think the kind of thought processes that you have presented, Colin, about, the mindset and, where do we start? And I wanted to just let you also know that what the Chamber has also done is to decide that we may not be able to start establishing and building the bridges with all the Caribbean countries, But we did sign a tripartite agreement with Guyana and Suriname in July of this year. And the strategic policy is to begin to be able to provide and open the markets. And yes, we do recognize from the engagement with Guyana and Suriname that shipping and logistics was one of the challenges. But we too haven't stopped there, colleagues. We have been looking at through our bilateral engagement with Guyana, how can we be solving these problems? I'm excited to hear that you're working to bring a solution at a more macro regional level. And we hope that as a member of the Chamber College, you'll engage us in that regard. We do talk to export Barbados, but we also hope that you'll engage us. So I just wanted you to know that we as a chamber are as a facilitator and enabler, we are doing what we can to address the challenges to bridging the trade divide and increasing the trade relations that are needed with our regional partners. Those are my contributions, and thanks again, Colin, for facilitating this session.
Well, thank you very, very much. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, the maritime solutions are front and center right now. No more questions?
Okay.
Then?
Yeah. All right. Well, if there's no further questions, Collis, thank you so much for facilitating today's workshop and for sharing your expertise with us. It certainly was a very robust discussion, and we have lots of things to think about and even more things to do. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank everybody for coming. I'm looking forward to conquering together.
Excellent. Thanks again, Collis. Thank you. We will now, thank you, Collis. We will now take a short break for a video from our silver sponsor, Deloitte Barbados.
Life is complex. Everything interconnected, in constant flux. A simple shift in focus can reveal hidden issues and unearth new opportunities. At Deloitte, we make it our priority to look again and to dig deeper beneath the surface, analyzing the many intricate issues that businesses face, providing insights that help turn risks into opportunities, disruption into growth, information into transformation, helping our clients focus on the heart of what really matters. And with these insights, even the most complex problems can become new possibilities. This is what we do.
At this time, I would like to formally thank the persons who made this entire workshop series a success. Our workshop facilitator, Mr. Collis Williams, who made the time out of his daily schedule to facilitate today's session. Collis, we thank you for the tips and insights you shared with us today. They were indeed thought-provoking. I would also like to thank the President of the Barbados Chamber and the Executive Director. Of course, we extend our gratitude, and before I move on, and the Secretariat, who certainly made all of this possible, along with the audiovisual company. Of course, we extend our gratitude to the businesses who rallied with us to sponsor this workshop series. Our gold sponsor, the Nation Publishing Company Limited. Silver sponsors, Fund Access, the Business and Employment Center, and Deloitte Barbados. And bronze sponsors, Guardian General Insurance and RDL Eagle Trade, Inc. We appreciate your willingness to continue to contribute to the success of our New Thought Leadership series. To you, our members, small business owners, and other participants, we hope that you found the discussions beneficial and that you found anything in there that would certainly help you grow your own business and also improve your resiliency in this modern environment that we are navigating. To the dedicated team of the BCCI Secretariat who worked behind the scenes to pull this event together, your efforts in ensuring a well-organized event are very much appreciated. Thank you. To the technical team at Marnico Media, we thank you for providing us with your expert technical management support for the entire workshop series. In closing, we encourage all of you to utilize one of the lessons or valuable tips shared today. Once again, thank you. I wish each of you a safe and productive day and hope to see you again at the Chamber's events in 2022. Good day.